Jurassic Park Operation Genesis. Probably one of the most celebrated park builders ever made, and one of the most influential dinosaur games altogether. It was the spiritual inspiration behind the game series Jurassic World Evolution, and is actually home to some of the best dinosaur designs in gaming altogether. But I think it's about time we assessed, compared and ranked each dinosaur's visual design from the game, and decide once and for all who holds the title of the drippiest dinosaur in Jurassic Park. So please enjoy this video, and remember that this is all for fun, and it shouldn't be taken too seriously. And if you liked what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe, or if you didn't agree with me, let me know where you would rank them. Alright, so before we get started, you'll probably notice that the lowest rank is actually C, and that's because there isn't actually any designs in JPOG, in my opinion, that are bad. I think all of the designs within Jurassic Park Operation Genesis are actually really good, and a lot of them are still much better than a lot of the corresponding designs you'll see in other dinosaur media. But then again, that is just my opinion, but there we go. So a lot of the JPOG superfans will be happy to know that we're not exactly going to be slating any of these skins. It's just that some of them are better than others, so we're going to sort of roll off that. The highest we go is S+, because I think some of these skins are so good that I think they go beyond S rank themselves. So we've made an extra rank above that, just for the ones that serve the most looks and have the most drip. Sorry for throwing out modern terminology, but you know, we've got to keep up these days. Okay, so first we're going to start with the Acrocanthosaurus. This version of the Acro was actually my first exposure to the dinosaur itself, and I thought it was fantastic. I love the red stripes marks that it has on its body, and the overall color scheme is just great, and it really stands out amongst all of the other apex carnivores because it looks so unique. So I do believe it belongs. I'll tell you what, before we go any higher, we'll put it in S for now, but it will very likely graduate to S+ when it comes around to sort of reviewing my decisions here. So we're going to put Acrocanthosaurus in S rank for now. Albertosaurus. Game-wise, Alberto is probably one of my favourite dinosaurs in the game to use. I do think his skin or design, whichever way you want to use it, is quite good. But I don't think it's like crazy good. So I'll probably put it at the lead of B for now. But again, we'll probably change that. I really like the Allo design in Jurassic Park Operation Genesis because it's quite uniquely different to the way that we've seen Allo in other games. You know, we usually see Allos in shades of green or browns, at least back when the game came out. But we got introduced to this sort of really nice red Allo, and I thought it was really good, regardless of whether or not it's an accurate portrayal of what the Allo looked like. Allo fans in the comments, you can let me know if this is a bang-on accurate representation of the Allo, because, you know, I'm not exactly paleo accurate myself, but I think he'll belong at the top of A for now, just to balance this out a bit, just so we don't get a bit too top heavy or bottom heavy. The Anky, I think he's a bit of a plain Jane. I think he's quite straightforward with his design. Still good, but nothing that sort of pops out at you. I do like the sort of red shading underneath the eye, and I do like the Anky's design overall, but when in comparison to some of the other dinosaurs, he is a bit dull. But I don't think he necessarily belongs in C rank, so I'm going to keep him at the bottom end of B at this moment in time. Alright, the Brachii. Maybe my first controversial take, but I think Brachii is probably one of the weakest designs in all of Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, if not the most. Not because it's bad, but just because it's probably because it's like the least fascinating design that we have here, because it's just grey with a red hump on top. It kind of just looks sort of like someone threw an elephant skin over the dinosaur. So we're going to put him in C for now, just because he can't keep up with the style of these other guys. Now, Camarasaurus. Regardless of whether or not the model design is outdated now, I do think the skin absolutely slaps. I think it's got one of the best green skins in all of dinosaur gaming, and what a statement that is to say. But yeah, I just think it's so good. I think it's very tropical, and I think it suits the vibe of the game. So I'm going to put Camarasaurus in S rank, just behind the Acrocanthosaurus. The Ceratosaurus, actually my favourite carnivorous dinosaur, and that also has changed a lot in its design in terms of paleoaccuracy through the years. But I think Ceratosaurus has quite an iconic design. Maybe it's the fact that Jurassic Park 3 carries that iconic design, that people recognise it so much, and then that did also carry through to Jurassic World Evolution. So because of that, and because I've probably got a bit of bias, I'm going to put Cerato in front of Allo in A, but I'll probably change that again. Now, Corythosaurus, a little bit more exotic in its colours, really stand out, you can definitely spot it from a mile away. It's probably one of my favourite skin designs. Granted, I don't tend to use them in my park that much. I'm much more of an Edmontosaurus fan, or Ouranosaurus. So I think maybe we'll keep them in A, back end of A. Now with the Dilo, I think the Dilo has quite a nice design. I appreciate its use of a lot of different shades of black and greys, and the closer you look, the more of a design you see. So I think it's a bit of an underrated dinosaur design within this game. Whether or not I think he should be in A tier or B tier, tell you what, I think he should belong in A tier, maybe in front of the Corythosaurus. The Dilo fans might crucify me for that one. Now Dryos. I think Dryos are nice, but obviously I don't think they're anything crazy either. I do like the patterns that they have, but because of the model size, you can tell that the quality of the skin kind of suffers because they've got such a small body to wrap the skin around. So I do feel like the quality of the design overall suffers due to the model size. So I'm probably going to put them in B tier, but behind the Anky for now. Edmontosaurus, the one dinosaur in Jurassic Park Operation Genesis that could live for 6 years. I think it's got a really good design, kind of similar to the Corythosaurus, but I do think it still has its own uniqueness to it, and I do think it's quite good. I think it's better than Corythosaurus, and I'd say it's better than the Dilo, but not as good as the Allo, so we're going to leave Edmontosaurus there for now. Gali, I'm kind of juggling with the idea of either putting him in C or the back end of B, because it is quite plain and straightforward. Yes, it's quite iconic because it's linked to the skin or design used in Jurassic Park, but in my opinion, I just didn't vibe with it that much. At least not much with the Dryosaurus, so I'm probably going to put them next to the Dryo. Please forgive me for the pronunciation of this, the Homalocephale, I think is the way to pronounce it. Quite a big favourite of mine within the game, but I don't think the design is too crazy. I think it also maybe belongs in B tier. You know, it's a bit more exciting than the grey Brachie, but not too fantastic to be in A tier either. So I would probably put Homalocephale ahead of the Anky for now. Kentro. I think Kentro is another favourite of mine in the game, but design-wise I wish they went a bit more colourful or a bit more exciting, because it does kind of just look like a pale turd walking around in the grass, which is a bit disappointing because Kentro is one of my favourite dinosaurs. So I think I'd probably put Kentro maybe... I'll put Kentro next to Anky, just a bit ahead, because that's my bias with Kentro dragging me along there. With the Ouranosaurus I think has got a very good design. Maybe it's due to the fact that it's so unique in the way that it looks, but something about it I really like. It's such a shame that it only lived for like 3 years in the game, because they would always be the first to die. But you know what, it's always worth to have them in your park, so I think they belong in the S rank, so we're going to slap them there. Alright, so with the Pachy, I think it is a very simple yet very decent design. Blue seems to work quite well with Pachy, I don't know why. I definitely think it's better than these guys, but I still don't think it's quite breaking past Allo or Cerato in A tier. Parasaurolophus. I think the design on this para is very nice. I've kind of preferred it over some of the more recent para designs, regardless of whether or not it is more accurate. So I do think it probably belongs at the top end of B tier, because I do think it's better than all of these guys behind him. So I'll pop him here. Spinosaurus. Now, you guys are going to hate me, so please don't unsubscribe, but I actually hate the Spinosaurus. Not design-wise, just like, I hated him in the movie because I'm a Rex fan, and I've always been a Rex fan, so I'm trying not to... You guys are probably going to... Nah, I'm not going to be that much of an arsehole. I think Spino belongs in S tier with the design because it is a good design. I can't deny that. You know, it follows the iconic design from the movie. But tell you what, I'm going to be a little bit petty and keep him at the back end of S tier. You guys can send me some hate if you want. I don't care. Rex fan for life. Shout out to all the Rex fans. Now, Stegosaurus, my ultimate favorite dinosaur, very commonly has some very plain skin colors throughout most games. I do think the design of the body and the model, which is the exact same thing, is very good, but I can't argue that it is very plain with how it looks. So I would probably keep him probably in front of the Dilo, but behind the... No, I'll put him in front of the Edmontosaurus. I think he looks nicer than the Edmontosaurus. Now, the Styracosaurus, another dinosaur that just can't wait to die of old age in your park. I do think he suffers from the same fate as the Brachii, and that is just wrapping the dinosaur in grey and calling it a day. And there you go, I was a poet and I didn't even realise. So I think he's probably going to be in B tier. I'll probably put him next to the Kentro. Two sides of the same coin, I would say. I do think he looks better than the Kentro. Not as good as the Homalocephale. So we'll leave that there. And it's funny how we talk about wrapping dinosaurs in grey because we've got two more that are the exact same thing. But I do think these guys have got a bit more appeal to them. Torosaurus, I think, is carried a bit by its territorial, you know, fighting gameplay that it features. However, if we're just going strictly by the design, I think he is better in design just simply by looks than the majority of these. I would probably keep him... I'll keep him next to the Parasaur for now. The Triceratops, again, completely wrapped in grey, but something about the way it looked in this game was very appealing to me. Maybe it's just simply because it is the dinosaur Triceratops and it's quite iconic. And I also think it was slightly different to the way that we saw it in Jurassic Park, because obviously it was quite brown and dark in Jurassic Park, whereas this one's a bit more light and grey. I do think it looks really nice to have in your park, and I might be like being a hypocrite here from stuff that I've said about the other grey dinosaurs, but I do believe that the Triceratops should at least be up here in A tier, maybe next to the Stegosaurus. So now we're getting down to the final ones, including the cow and the goat. So let's get the cow and the goat out of the way first. The cow, clear S tier, above the Spino, just to throw a little bit more mud towards the Spino fans. I'm joking, I love you guys really. But I like the cow's design. I like the colours. That's all. I don't know how much I can add to a critique of the fodder of the JPOG world. Goat, I think, is a bit more boring in colour, a bit depressing. So he's gonna go next to the Brachii, but we're gonna put him in front of the Brachii. He's not as bad as the Brachii. Alright, now the final three. Now the Rex. I think this design is solid. I love Rexes that have colours of green in them before we started moving over to just like a plain brown. Very similar, kind of looks similar to the Rex in Jurassic World Rebirth, because I really like the design of that one as well. I do think it's beyond most of these. In fact, I'd say it is above the Acro as well. Now, being a person who doesn't like raptors, I do believe that this is actually a good raptor skin. It's obviously following Jurassic Park 3's version of the raptor, and I'm glad that they did this raptor more than the original Jurassic Park raptor. Granted, when I was younger, I used to be annoyed by this raptor skin because I wanted it to look like the original raptor, but now I've come to appreciate it a bit more. Do I think it belongs in S tier? Maybe. But never mind. We'll put him in S tier for now. And now, finally for the main event. And I'm sure a lot of you are already knowing what I'm going to do with this guy. I don't think it's even a matter of opinion. This guy is objectively the best Carcharodontosaurus representation we have ever seen, accurate or not. You know, we don't talk about the horrible monster that came from Jurassic World Evolution. You know, we all hold this guy in our hearts, as he has one of the most solid and coolest designs ever made for a dinosaur. And I'm sure a lot of you will agree. This guy is the king of serving dinosaur drip, without a doubt. So yeah, this is the tier list so far. Let's see if I want to make any adjustments before we wrap this thing up. So I'll run it down from here. We have the Brachii as the bottom of C. Then we have the goat. We have the Galli, then the Dryo, then the Anky. We have the Kentro, Styracosaurus, Homalocephale, Albertosaurus, Torosaurus, Para. I think Para I might move behind these two. I do feel like these are a bit more exciting than this guy. Corythosaurus, Dilo, Edmontosaurus, Trike, Stego, Pachy, Allo, Ceratosaurus. I think this row seems fine in my opinion. Raptors, Spino, Cow, Ouranosaurus, Camarasaurus, Acro, Rex. I think that is also fine. And then we have the King of Serve right at the top here. So yeah, I don't think I had to make that much adjustments. I do want to hear what you guys think, because I do think Jurassic Park Operation Genesis has a very passionate fan base that loves to discuss things. So I want to hear what you think. What would you rank in S+? What would you rank in C? And really give me a piece of your mind for hating on Spino too, because you know what, I'm all for it. But yeah, this is the tier list. So that's the end of the JPOG tier list. I hope you enjoyed the watch, whether I had your full attention or if I was just background noise. Jurassic Park Operation Genesis was one of the most influential games in my life, and it played a big part in my motivation to make content around dinosaurs. I hope my first video on this will be appreciated by you guys. And finally, big thanks to the YouTube channel and Discord, The Amber Mine, as they were responsible for providing all of the PNGs of the JPOG dinos for us to take a closer look at. So I heavily recommend you check them out for more dino content.